You know that feeling, right? You've spent hours, maybe days, mixing your track.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But then you play it on your phone, then in your car, then maybe through some decent headphones, and you realize it's just, well, it's not quite there.
Yeah.
You know, not loud enough for streaming, maybe not clear across every single speaker system, and definitely not sounding like those professional tracks you admire.
Right.
And then you think about mastering engineers, the cost, the weight, and it can feel like a real roadblock.
It really is a universal pain point, I think, for almost any musician or content creator today. That final polish, that consistency across platforms,
Yeah.
that's what turns a good mix into a genuinely release-ready track.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why today we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating and really rapidly evolving world of AI audio mastering.
It's moving so fast.
It really is. Our sources for this exploration are some key excerpts from a platform called BeatsToRapOn, and also a really insightful 2025 comparison report. It's titled, pretty simply, LANDR versus eMastered versus BeatsToRapOn.
Mm-hmm. And our mission today, really, is to unpack a crucial question. Can a new generation of these specialist AI mastering tools, can they truly outperform the established generalist players?
Right.
Especially when we're talking about specific music genres. We're going to, dive into the data from this report and see who really delivers that release-ready sound for your tracks.
Okay, let's unpack this then. First, maybe for anyone who might be a bit new to this, what exactly is AI mastering? What are we talking about?
Yeah, good question. At its core, AI mastering takes your mixed track, so all your instruments and vocals nicely balanced together, and it applies that final layer of professional polish. Think of it like a digital sound engineer applying smart EQ, compression, and loudness normalization. The main goal is to make your track sound professional, consistent, and crucially, translate perfectly across every playback system imaginable.
From earbuds to club system.
Exactly. From tiny earbuds to a massive club system or, just your car stereo.
And for years, the big names, the kind of pioneers in this space, were what we'd call the generalist AI platforms. How did they approach it?
That's right. Platforms like LANDR and eMastered really set the standard early on for instant automated results. They were trained on these vast, incredibly diverse libraries of music, really aiming to serve every possible genre, rock, classical, pop, everything. Their approach was very much one-size-fits-all, really, designed to get pretty much any track to a consistent, loud, and compliant state for platforms.
But now there's this challenger, a specialist that's entered the ring, BeatsToRapOn, specifically with its proprietary AI mastering agents named Valkyrie. What makes Valkyrie different?
Well, the key distinction with Valkyrie is its precision engineering, as they put it. It was apparently co-developed with professional producers, and it's specifically tailored for the, let's say, exacting sonic demands of hip-hop, rap, and bass-centric music.
Okay, so genres like trap.
Exactly. Trap, Afrobeats, reggae, R&B. While the generalists aim for that broad appeal and, general compliance, Valkyrie's designed to understand and enhance the unique characteristics of these specific genres. We're talking like booming 808s, crisp, cutting vocals, that kind of thing.
So this really brings us to the core question this report is digging into. Can a next-generation specialist AI actually deliver demonstrably superior results for its target genres compared to these established one-size-fits-all players? And this isn't just about opinion, right? It's not subjective preference.
Not at all, no. This report leans really heavily on what they call forensic audio analysis.
Okay.
So they use objective tools like time-collapse spectrograms, vector scope imaging, crest factor analysis, and EBU R128 loudness compliance metrics. The whole aim was to provide objective, data-driven results that go way beyond just saying, oh, this one sounds better. They wanted to actually prove it with data.
That sounds like a really solid approach. So how do they make sure this was a fair fight? That all these services were put through the exact same test?
Yeah, that's crucial. To ensure an unbiased evaluation, all three services, LANDR, eMastered, and BeatsToRapOn, received the exact same MP3 file to master.
Okay, the exact same file.
Exactly. And this file was originally created from a standard 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit source. So the standardized input meant they all started from an identical sonic fingerprint, basically eliminating any variables from the source material itself.
Got it. And just quickly, for those of us who aren't audio engineers, what exactly is an MP3, and why does it matter that they all started with one? Is that common?
Yeah, it's a really good point. MP3 is, well, it's the most common audio format in the world, right? Perfect for streaming, sharing files easily. But here's the thing. It shrinks the file size by permanently removing some subtle sonic details. The algorithm figures out the bits our ears are least likely to miss. So you get smaller files, but some information is gone forever. Starting with an MP3 for mastering is actually a very real-world scenario for many creators.
Right.
But it also really highlights how crucial it is for the mastering process to get the absolute most out of what's left. You can't magically put back what the MP3 encoding took away.
Makes sense. And what was the specific music sample they used for this test?
The track was called I'm Not a Star by an artist named Willem Hengel-Mullen. He's described as an independent artist, blending brooding textures with raw, vocal-driven energy.
Okay.
It was actually pulled directly from the Trap collection on BeatsToRapOn itself. And this track was apparently ideal for testing because it has this really wide range of sonic elements that properly challenge a mastering engine.
Like what specifically?
Well, deep sub-bass hits, intricate mid-range vocal layers, these sharp percussive synth stabs, and then also delicate high-end air and FX washes.
So, a bit of everything.
Exactly. It really forced each AI to show its true capabilities across the entire frequency spectrum.
Okay, so this is where, like you said, the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
We often feel the difference in a well-mastered track, but this report gives us visual proof. First up, the spectrogram diagram, which I like your description of, the photograph of your music. Did it really show a clear winner here?
Oh, absolutely. It was quite stark, actually. So yeah, imagine this picture, right? Vertical axis is pitch low bass at the bottom, high treble up top, horizontal is time. And the color shows loudness. Bright yellows, whites are very loud, dark blues, blacks are quiet.
Okay.
You're looking for how energy is distributed, how clear things look, is there separation, is there enough, room to breathe dynamically?
So how did BeatsToRapOn's spectrogram look for this track, I'm Not a Star?
BeatsToRapOn's spectrogram showed this really tight, controlled band of energy down in the sub-bass region, like clear orange and yellow stripes, but no big whiteout block.
Okay, what does whiteout mean there?
Whiteout basically means it's hitting the limiter so hard that all definition is lost. It's just pure slammed level. So BTR avoided that. Its sub-bass hits hard but stays defined.
Got it.
Then you could see clear variation and fine patterns in the low mids and mid-range, which suggests really good vocal and instrument separation. And importantly, there was noticeable energy all the way up to around 18 kilohertz in the highs.
So the air.
Exactly, indicating a clear, airy top end, which is often missing in heavily processed masters. And the overall dynamic gradient looks smooth.
Okay, so that's BeatsToRapOn. How did LANDR compare on its spectrogram?
LANDR's was different. It had an extremely dense white band below 100 hertz, almost a solid block, like I mentioned.
So that aggressive limiting you talked about.
Precisely. It indicates really aggressive limiting where the low end is pushed so hard it just loses definition and could easily mask other elements.
Yeah.
And its low mids also showed this broad, flat, kind of white-yellow plateau, suggesting less distinction between instruments and vocals in that critical range. It really seemed like it sacrificed clarity for just sheer loudness, especially in the lows, and less emphasis on the air up top.
Okay. What about eMastered? Where did it sit?
eMastered showed a solid yellow band in the sub-bass, so it was loud down there, but maybe not completely slammed like LANDR. Still quite dense, though. But the report noted a noticeable fog of orange in the mid-range.
A fog.
Yeah, implying instruments may be blended together a bit too much, losing some individual clarity. And the air bands, those high frequencies above 10 kilohertz, were quite faint, suggesting maybe a gentle roll-off in the extreme highs, which could make the track sound a little less open or sparkly.
So based purely on the spectrogram, why did BeatsToRapOn win this round? What does that actually mean for someone listening to the track?
Well, BeatsToRapOn won this visual test because it seemed to preserve the widest dynamic range within the different frequency bands while still delivering power. It allowed both those deep sub-bass transients and the airy highs to truly breathe, to coexist clearly. Right, vocals seem to sit clearly in the mix. The kick and bass could have punch without just overwhelming everything else, and those melodic elements could still sparkle. In essence, it gave the music room to live and breathe, which is so important for these layered, bass-heavy genres where every element needs its own space to be felt properly. It showed superior transparency and dynamics, visually at least.
Okay, so we've seen the visual evidence with the spectrogram, which is fascinating. But beyond just what you see, how did these services stack up when it came to the actual loudness and the dynamic range,
Yeah.
what you might call the breadth of your track? That's where this EBU R128 loudness and loudness range test comes in, right?
Exactly. This is all about the numbers that streaming platforms actually care about. Integrated loudness, measured in LUFS, tells you the perceived average loudness of the entire track, basically. How loud it sounds to a listener over time.
Okay.
Loudness range, or LRA, quantifies the dynamic contrast. So how much difference is there between the quietest and loudest passages in the song?
The variation.
Yeah, the overall variation. And then true peak, measured in dBTP, is super crucial for preventing clipping or distortion when the audio is converted back to analog on consumer devices.
Oh,
You need to stay below 0 dBTP.
right, got it. So how do they stack up in terms of just the overall loudness, the integrated loudness?
Well, eMastered came out the loudest, hitting negative 9.7 LUFS. BeatsToRapOn was slightly under the typical streaming target, around negative 11.0 LUFS, which is still perfectly loud and acceptable for all platforms, actually offers a bit more dynamic potential. LANDR, interestingly, was noticeably quieter at negative 13.7 LUFS, closer to the sort of older Spotify target.
Okay. And for loudness range, that breadth of the track, do they all allow the music to swell and recede naturally?
This was interesting. LANDR, despite being quieter overall, actually showed the greatest dynamic span, the biggest difference between soft and loud sections at 3.8 OU.
Yeah.
eMastered was kind of in the middle ground at 3.0 OU, and BeatsToRapOn was the most compressed in this specific metric at 2.0 LU.
So the quietest and loudest sections were closer together in volume for BeatsToRapOn.
Exactly, suggesting a very consistent overall volume level throughout the track, less variation between sections.
Okay, but then this next metric, crest factor.
Yeah.
This seems like it's really crucial for the feel of the track, especially for genres like hip-hop or trap that need impact. What exactly is crest factor, and why does this number have such a big impact on the punch and dynamics?
Crest factor is, well, it's essentially the difference between the peak level, those really short, loud moments like a snare hit, and the average RMS level, the sort of sustained loudness of your sound.
Okay.
A higher crest factor means more difference between the peaks and the average. In practical terms, it means more transient snap and punch. Those quick, sharp intacts of a drum or a synth stab or even a percussive vocal chop, they retain their impact more.
And the results here were significant.
Very. BeatsToRapOn had the highest crest factor by a decent margin at 12.60 day. This means it preserved the most transient impact for drums and percussive elements. The report said it made the mix feel genuinely more alive and impactful. In contrast, eMastered had the lowest crest factor at 11.10 dB, suggesting it was the most brick-walled. It indicates it crushed those transients, shaved off those peaks, probably to achieve that higher overall integrated loudness we saw earlier. LANDR was in the middle.
So wait, there was a kind of paradox here, isn't there? BeatsToRapOn had the most compressed overall loudness consistency according to the LRA, but the highest crest factor, meaning the most punch in the individual hits. How do we explain that to our listener? How does it deliver both consistency and punch?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's really key to understanding modern mastering, especially for these genres. Think of it like this. BeatsToRapOn is managing the macro dynamics very tightly. That's the LRA, the overall volume difference between, say, a verse and a chorus. It keeps the energy level consistently high. But at the same time, it's preserving the microdynamics. That's the crest factor, the sharp attack, the punch of individual sounds like the kick drum or the snare. It's not squashing those initial hits flat.
I see.
So you get a track that feels consistently energetic and powerful from start to finish, which is great for streaming and keeping listeners engaged. But it doesn't achieve that by sacrificing the impact and life of the individual drum hits. It avoids that fatiguing, flat, brick-walled sound that you often get when masters just push for maximum loudness at absolutely all costs, crushing everything in the process.
That's a fantastic explanation.
Right.
Like a trained athlete Powerful punches,
Yeah.
but controlled overall energy.
Exactly. It's a sophisticated balance.
Okay, brilliant. Finally, in the data showdown, let's talk about the vector scope for audio test. This one's about the stereo stage of your music, right? How wide and immersive it feels.
That's right. A vector scope, sometimes called a Lesagis display, plots the amplitude of the left audio channel against the amplitude of the right channel. A tight diagonal line running up the middle means the signal is pure mono-identical in both speakers. A wide sort of cloud or pattern indicates a healthy stereo spread, but if you see strong horizontal lines or arms sticking out sideways, that can warn you about out-of-phase issues.
And those are bad because...
Because out-of-phase content can cancel itself out when the left and right channels are summed to mono, which happens on phone speakers, some club systems, Bluetooth speakers. It can make your bass disappear or your vocals sound thin and weird. So you want width, but you also need mono compatibility.
Got it. So how did eMastered perform here? What did its stereo stage look like on the vector scope?
eMastered's vector scope display was described as a tiny cluster of points hugging the very center, almost a perfect dot.
Wow, so...
Yeah, meaning it was extremely narrow, virtually mono, actually.
Why would it do that?
Well, it's the safest approach for mono compatibility. If it's already mono, nothing can cancel out. But the huge trade-off is you sacrifice almost all sense of stereo width and space. The mix feels very flat, very centered.
Okay. And LANDR? Did it go the other way?
It did. LANDR apparently showed a sprawling, almost circular cloud,
Which means?
which indicates a really strong stereo spread, seemingly very immersive and wide. However, the report also noted a lack of a tight central core to that cloud.
Ah, and that suggests...
That suggests potential phase cancellation issues, like we just discussed.
Yep.
You might get this big, wide-sounding mix in stereo, but crucial elements like the bass or maybe the kick drum or even lead vocals, if they have stereo effects, could disappear or sound thin and weak when it's summed to mono. It's wide, but potentially unstable.
So where did BeatsToRapOn land on this spectrum between super narrow and potentially unstable wide?
BeatsToRapOn's vector scope display was described as a moderately sized, well-defined oval. It stretched along that central 45-degree axis, showing good mono compatibility, but it also had a healthy width extending outwards.
Okay.
The analysis said this demonstrated balanced left-right correlation and noticeable stereo width without extreme phase divergence.
So why did BeatsToRapOn win the vector scope test, in their view? And what's the sort of gold standard here for our listeners who want their tracks to sound good everywhere?
Well, according to the report, it basically struck the sweet spot.
The balance.
Exactly. It delivered enough stereo separation to give the track depth and space, making it feel expansive and immersive when you listen in stereo. But crucially, it maintained a strong central core, strong LR correlation. And this ensures that those critical elements, usually your kick, your bass, your lead vocal, remain intact and powerful, even when the track is played back in mono, which, let's be honest, happens way more often than many artists realize, right? On phones, laptops, smart speakers.
Absolutely.
So achieving that balance wide enough for stereo enjoyment, but solid enough for mono playback, that really is the gold standard for professional mastering. You need your track to sound great everywhere.
Okay, this is incredibly detailed. So let's pull back a bit. What's the so what here? What does all this data, all this forensic analysis actually mean for, you the artist, you the producer, trying to get your music finished and heard?
Yeah, I mean, if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, this report strongly suggests that for artists working specifically in these genres, hip-hop, rap, trap, R&B, other bass-centric styles, a specialist AI like BeatsToRapOn can offer a level of surgical precision, perhaps? A precision that the generalist platforms, while, really powerful and excellent for broad compliance and just getting a track loud and ready quickly, they might not be able to match for these very specific sonic demands.
Right. It's not about one being bad, maybe.
Yeah.
It's about finding the right tool for the specific job that truly understands the nuances of your genre's sound.
Precisely. It's about an AI that's really tailored for modern genres that have very specific sonic needs.
Needs that maybe weren't as prevalent when the generalists were first developed.
Possibly, yeah. Or just needs that require a different focus. This AI, Valkyrie, is specifically trained on, hit records within these genres. It's trained to know how to make, as the source says, hip-hop punchy, R&B smooth, and trap bass hit hard.
Right.
It truly respects your genre's unique sonic signature. It seems to excel with those booming 808s and that complex low-end interaction, understanding the specific demands of these styles in a way that a generalist AI almost by definition, can't prioritize quite as much because it has to cater to everything.
And the report and the BeatsToRapOn source material, they highlight several key benefits for artists using this kind of specialist approach for these genres, right? What were the main ones?
Yeah, they outline several practical benefits. For you, the creator, this means, firstly, achieving that perfect streaming loudness. Hitting the optimal LUFS levels for platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, without getting penalized for being too loud or sounding weak because you're too quiet. Secondly, it adds that loudness and polish while, as the data showed, meticulously preserving dynamic range, especially the microdynamics, the punch, so you get clarity without compromise, without that brick-walled sound.
Nice.
Thirdly, you get high-resolution output 24-bit WAV files, which are the industry standard for distribution, not just MP3s. Fourth, that true peak protection we talked about, preventing hidden distortion on consumer playback systems.
Crucial.
Very. And fifth, a really fantastic benefit highlighted was the unlimited free previews.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah. You can apparently master your song as many times as you need, upload new mixes if you tweak things, A/B test different masters, all for free until you're absolutely satisfied that it's right before you actually pay to download the final file.
That removes a lot of the risk and guesswork.
Absolutely. Allows for iteration.
And it seems like there's real-world validation included in the sources, too, not just the data. Testimonials.
Indeed, yeah. The sources included quotes from artists and producers who'd used BeatsToRapOn's mastering. Someone called It's Ya Boy Mayo, an artist-producer, said the low end came out tight and powerful. Seriously impressive.
Okay.
Brickline Records, a label producer, noted it got the loudness perfect for streaming and made the vocals sit perfectly. And another producer, PMP Beats, said it understood hip-hop, added the right amount of punch and polish.
So people are hearing the difference the data suggests.
Exactly. It seems the objective analysis translates into tangible, audible results that actual creators in the genre appreciate.
And finally, for anyone listening who's thinking about giving this or any AI mastering a try, how easy is it to use? Is it complicated?
No, generally these platforms, including BeatsToRapOn, according to the sources, are designed to be really streamlined. It's usually just drag and drop.
Okay.
You take your final mix file, ideally a high-quality WAV or FLAC for the best results. And importantly, make sure your mix has adequate headroom, maybe between a -6 dBFS and -12 dBFS on the peaks, and definitely no limiters or maximizers already slapped on your master bus.
Good tip.
Yeah, leave that for the mastering AI. You upload that file, and the AI typically crafts your master pretty much instantly, or within a few minutes. It's built for speed and quality, making it accessible.
Okay, so to sort of bring this all together then, this deep dive really seems to show the significant impact that specialized AI can have, and maybe is having, in music production now, particularly for genres like hip-hop, rap, in this whole world of bass-centric music. It looks like a tailored approach, like the one demonstrated by BeatsToRapOn's Valkyrie in this report, can lead to demonstrably superior results.
Yeah, superior in terms of that tricky balance of tonal characteristics, dynamic punch, and also spatial imaging, the width and monocompatibility. The data points that way for these specific genres.
Which really leads us to a pretty provocative thought to leave our listeners with, doesn't it?
I think so. It really raises this important question about, well, the future of creativity and the tools we use. As AI continues its relentless evolution, should artists and creators be seeking out these generalist tools that try to do a bit of everything reasonably well for a very broad range of applications, the Swiss Army knife approach?
Right.
Or will the true game changers, the real leaps forward, come from these specialist AIs? Tools that are deeply tuned, meticulously trained on the specific nuances of a single craft or a single genre, offering that kind of surgical precision that might just outstrip a one-size-fits-all approach for specific tasks.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Sure.
Whether the future of innovation, particularly in creative AI, lies in those broad strokes or in that focused, niche, surgical precision.
Yeah.
Something to definitely mull over.